We have two speakers, and now Anna Lebedeva is already joined us.
Yes.
So, Anna, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I can answer the questions during my presentation, and also I have reserved 10 minutes for your questions and answers. By the end of my presentation, I would like to see and hear if you have enough volume. Do you hear me well?
Yeah, the sound is good.
The sound is good, right? Thank you very much, Dmitry and the team. I'm very honored to be invited to this conference today, and I would like to share my personal experience and some summaries as a mentor, as a coach, and as a trainer, and as a coach at the level of MCC. So I hope my presentation will be useful for you. In the beginning, I'll introduce myself a little. And I would like to ask you to write if you have known me from before, or do you see me for the first time? So I will try to navigate. How do I switch my presentation? Yes, I guess I have achieved it. And then I will continue with the program and dive in some of the areas I think are of great importance, and would welcome your questions around it. As I have a lot of material, I might not be able to cover everything I want, but we can do as much as we can. Right. Thank you very much for the ones who have answered already. So let me introduce myself a little in the beginning. I work as executive coach, and I work as the main trainer for Ericsson International in Russia and CIS, and also around other countries. I work also as the mentor and ICF assessor for the PCC level. There are only two of us working from Russia. And I am the leader of one of the largest coaching schools, Ericsson International. By now, I have been working as a coach for 15 years. And the number of hours I managed to count is approximately 4,500, or maybe much more hours if we blend in my management as a coach or team management as a coach, along with my ICF accredited coaching hours. As a coach, I'm working with top management and different cross-cultural teams, or quite often I'm invited as a coach for expats coming to Russia and coaching them to get integrated and to be able to use their management tools in the most effective way. Working with the mixed teams and working with the Russian-speaking subordinates. So I have collected my geography here, wondering which are the countries I have experienced coaching representatives of. Of course, it's Russian-speaking countries like Russia, Kazakhstan, Ukraine, Latvia. And I've been coaching North Americans from Canada, US, and UK. Which are quite different, as based on what Gorky has said. I might reprioritize a little bit of my presentation, as there are some of the discoveries that we can build on Philip Rosinski and of Gorky as ideas. I have experienced some of the same with the coaching people from different countries. I've been also coaching people from Northern Europe, which is Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Finland. And that is quite peculiar in itself. And also, I've been working with the people from warmer countries like Turkey and Italy and some France. And you have asked the previous speaker about Indian people. Yes, I've been coaching Indian people and teaching them as well. So it's quite a diverse picture of clientele I was conducted. So I will I will do all my best to maybe summarize my experience in the best possible way. Let me try to put next slide. So we have me doing that. Page down, right. As a mentor, I was also working with people from different countries, mainly from Russia, but also as ICF assessor, I have been coming across coaching sessions with different accents. And as I know people from different countries and how do they speak, I have discovered that I can recognize different patterns. So to cut a long story short, I love my work. And I love my work, first of all, in Russian language. And I also love working in English and Norwegian, blending 3 languages in daily communication. In my family as well, we do speak Russian and Norwegian daily with the kids and with my husband. And when I am getting cross, I need to express something emotional, I switch to English because my Norwegian is a younger language and it doesn't help me to express fully my indignation sometimes with the family issues that might arise. So, and our children, I guess, they have the passive level of English, so we were not able to grow them as a trilingual children, but I am very proud that we can say that both of my children are fully bilingual, Russian and Norwegian, and hoping that English will come a little later. So, some topics of my presentation, which some of them are quite serious and scientific based, the others might be a little bit more humorous, as I just summarize my own observations here, not based on the strong theory. So I would like to speak in the introduction part of some of the summarizing of my experience, coaching first of fremst the people who have English as their own native language, and what do I experience and how does it work. Also coaching in a foreign language. Many of my clients are the same as me. They use English as the level of business communication, but that is not their language of daily usage, or maybe not their regional mother tongue. So what do I notice? What do we experience? I would also like to speak a little bit about a program that makes me build my international knowledge and capacity, peer reciprocal coaching with ICF. And I'll speak a little more about that and would be able to recommend you this program for your own use, like a program that gives you tools to reinforce your English-speaking clientele without getting out to the cold weather and selling yourself to the market. Then I would like to speak about my experience of preparation for MCC level credential in English, and you might be finding that useful for you in the future, because I know that many of you hold ACC or PCC credential, and here I would like to ask you how many of you already have been mentored, and maybe who of you, the ones who are present right now, do hold ACC or PCC credential with ICF. Please put that in the chat box so that I know how much time should I dedicate for that. And being a mentor, I mentor in English as well, people from several countries, and that has its strong impact on how the coach is able to show the competences that he might use in his own common language, and then switches to English and notices how the competences get a different flavor with this. So that's my plan for the presentation, and I have reserved some minutes in the end for your questions and my answers. Or you might be able to already ask me some questions in the chat box. Let me see. Yes. Great. Yeah, my friends from Bulgaria. Send me best regards, and I'm very happy to discover. Yes, I have not put on the list of my coaching languages clients from Bulgaria, but in fact, I have been teaching in Bulgaria and have great friends and former colleagues. Okay, so who of you is at the ECC level with ICF, and who of you is at PCC level of ICF would be useful information for me. And I see some of my students. Yes, great. So the first topic I wanted to cover was coaching the people from Anglo-Saxon mentality, let's say. And I've heard the previous speakers speaking about that phenomenon. You might have known that researchers discovered that there is a huge context difference between different countries, not only country to country, but in general as well. If we speak about the Anglo-Saxon mentality, the burden of white man and the language, the English language as it's based, you might discover that people who speak English as their mother tongue, UK and US, Canada, they have the culture so-called low context culture. As for Russian mentality, maybe Spanish mentality, very much so like Japanese mentality and some of the Asian mentalities. Those cultures, if we summarize them, kind of polarize or exaggerate a little bit, those cultures, they have high context cultures. What does it mean for us as a coach? When we are coaching people from, if I put these two mentalities on a scale as two polarities, I would say that English-speaking mentality in general, just I'm exaggerating and generalizing right now, and excuse me for that. This mentality is based on words, on language. So the people use the language in such a way that they mean what they say, and they say what they mean. Whereas Russian mentality and Russian mindset has a lot hidden at the second level, right? At the level when we say something, but we don't necessarily mean that. We speak, and you need to watch the facial expression. You need to notice the whole context of what had been said in the relationship to who is speaking to who, hierarchically, more hierarchical point of view, and also from the point of view of what is not being said. And that is a huge difference in coaching, like coaching English speakers who have English as their mother tongue. You somehow base your next question on what's been said, and you trust that what they say is what they mean. So it gives a very open expression of what they mean. And also you notice that if they pronounce something, most probably they mean it, and they are able to verbalize the emotion, open it up, and discuss it with you. Whereas when you speak with our clients, Russian speaking clients, let's say, Turkish people, and going to the East, you need to notice what haven't been said and what will never be said in the context of this conversation ever. Behind the face, behind the expression, you need to listen to also other things like what is the emotion, what is the energy level in how the person says that, what are the emotions. It gives base for taking word for word, for its face value. Whereas I'm coaching the people from East, like Turkish people, people from Oman, people from Lebanon, it might not be the case. You need to go deeper. You need to help verbalize something and agree upon something, which gives it its impact on being mentored and measured around the performance. So what do the mentors say about my performance in later? Also, one more difference that I have noticed, this famous picture of the surface level of the iceberg. There is a little iceberg on the surface, and 3/3 of it, or even more, is underwater. So what is there underwater? What haven't been said? How can you develop your deeper listening to be able to catch, grasp that, which is not said during the conversation? Let me give you several examples of this. Like I've been coaching a leader, a Danish leader, who was quite puzzled with behavior of his Russian subordinates. Just picture this. By the end of the year, they have the performance appraisal interview, like many other companies as well. And there is a huge difference in the mentality. The Danish leader notices the general performance throughout that year. He notices what was done well and what was not done well. He notices the competences that were developed and the competences that need to be developed even deeper. And he comes to the meeting with his subordinates and wants to discuss the whole list of all the competences in general and throughout the year. Whereas the Russian subordinates, they have been performing best in November and December and have, overcome themselves. And they were just fantastic by the end of the year. Whereas in the middle of the year, there were mistakes. There were big, huge drawbacks. And they expect that the conversation will be based on how it was the last 2 months after they have corrected themselves. And this Danish leader comes to me and says, I'm totally puzzled. What happens? Why these Russian subordinates became so emotional when I started to raise issues that were happening in June, July, and August, perhaps in the first quarter of the year, to discuss how we can work even better in the future. They were totally offended, Anna, emotional, and they were unsatisfied with this meeting of ours. As they said, like, why do you remember the things that's gone? This is all in the past. Don't uncover the past. We have cleaned it up. We have developed. We now want to go further. And that is such a huge difference in the mentality. It's not only a low context, high context, it's also the difference in the timeline. The Russian subordinates were doing their absolute very best in the last 2 months of the year to be able to show to the boss by the time of the performance appraisal interview, they show how huge is the progress. Even more so, they get motivated by opportunity to get negative feedback and do extra, go an extra mile, so that by the end of the year, you have the very clean picture of everything. Whereas the Danish leader, he doesn't want to play that game. He wants to see the overview from outside, what was good, what was bad, without being any emotional about that at all, just looking at that from the very scientific point of view and discovering, so what are the best ways of us working together in the future? Quite dissociated and unattached to that. And he came to me, well, can you help me, Anna, to figure out, so how can I proceed with my Russian employees? As this repeats with several people, we discussed about this. So what's there? What's this difference? Why is it so important for his subordinates to summarize the year by the last 2 months, not to aggregate everything, but see, so where you are right now, not dig in the past. why it's important for you to be disattached and look at the whole year as a neutral viewpoint from outside in the picture of this year, being totally objective and still analyzing the mistakes that were made, accepting that they might happen in the future. So we have been discovering that even the competences of contracting and establishing the agreements are different between these two cultures. So that's an example of cross-cultural difference. One more example of cross-cultural difference, I might jump from the part of my presentation that I wanted to speak about in the very end of the talk, but it might be also a very good picture. I was mentored even when I was submitting my documents for PCC level, but I do still remember that for maybe more than 10 years, as one of my American mentors was saying, like, Anna, when you ask the question, you really make a lot of introduction to that question. Can I ask you a question? To be able to clarify even better, I would need to ask, so what do you really want? And she said that all of that is crap. You need to cut it out. You need to really come to your client and just boldly say, so what do you want? I said, oh, you know, somehow for me at PCC level, it sounds rude. And it sounds, you know, offensive. Like when I come to the person, interrupt the person in the middle of the sentence and say, so what do you want with this? And I was working with this issue around building trust and intimacy. How do you actually build trust and intimacy in our European culture? And how do you do that in even, you know, American culture, being more direct, being more open, without a lot of introductions, just go on with your question, come, hit the point, and get the answer right there. So that is one more area where the competencies can have a different flavor from the point of view, who is speaking to who. Let me go further. As I would like to be useful for you, dear coaches, I would like to base my next part of the speech on ICF core competencies and everything that is around them. All right. So when we are basing our, maybe when we studied coaching in Russian, and then we come to a foreign language. For me, it's two foreign languages. It's English and it's Norwegian. We can notice that as soon as we start to use our coaching tools in a different language, we can discover that some of our capacities, some of our competencies that we actually trust in our own language evaporate or go down in value when we start to do it in a foreign language. So I have a question to you. If you have been coaching in English, who of you have been already coaching in English? Put a plus, please. And if you've done so, what do you notice? Which of the competencies you notice that they actually get shrinked? For myself, as a person who has a lot of humor, I'm using my empathy a lot when I coach in Russian. And I'm the one who goes deeper with listening. And I am very attentive to the energy flows inside of the speech. I discover that some of these things go maybe on the scale of ACC, PCC, MCC, go one mark lower. And the first of the competencies that goes lower, it's, you know, your competency to be in coaching presence. Like today, as English is my second language, and I'm not bilingual from my childhood, I feel how my coaching presence is being shrinked. As soon as I come to this meeting, I need to present in English. I notice that I'm becoming a little bit more nervous, less talkative, and I need to think a little bit what kind of verb or language I should use. in comparison to how fluently I can flow when I speak about the very same topic in Russian. So my coaching presence is the one who gets shrinked. So then there are two of the ones who go down in value. This is active listening, your ability to listen very deep, and the questioning, of which listening I am able to hold, but questioning, I need to really think about what I want to ask, and sometimes excuse myself. Like excuse myself for questioning you such a question that might not be relevant, but can I ask you this and this? And here I find the difference. When I'm coaching the people who have English as their mother tongue, for them, they actually get my questions much easier, as for them maybe they speak from a huge capacity of English language, and when I ask the question that might be a little bit sloppy or maybe shrinked, they actually get the meaning of it. But when I coach people from different other cultures, my most difficult ones might be Italian culture and Indian culture. Then for these people, my questions don't really hit them the way they would hit the English speakers. So I would need sometimes maybe ask again and again and again. And that will give me much less competencies. Let me get to the next slide. Yeah. Here I would like to, before I go further with the competencies, I would like to come back one step and would like to maybe make a promotion of something that I deeply value. Who of you have been through or used this ICF structure of peer reciprocal coaching? Put a plus, please. As I am ICF member from 2006, I've been using this system, the peer reciprocal, one person only. Do you joke? Really? Only one person? Yeah, Teddy, so that was only you? No? Dmitry also? Well, this is a very, I didn't even know about this. So now it's a little bit of promotion of something I am using. And I might suggest to you, even if coach is not giving any advice, I would suggest to you as your grandmother, or maybe I would suggest to you as your mentor, please, if you want to go further with your English, just go on and use the system of peer reciprocal coaching with ICF. You know how much you pay for your ICF membership, and I would like to ask you for a plus, the ones for ICF members being present at this speech. Who is ICF members of you? Okay, so I see much more pluses now. As soon as you're an ICF member, you can use this opportunity to go into the English speaking and non-English speaking circles of peer reciprocal coaching. What is that for me? As I've been training myself to be an MCC, and also as I wanted to always have some opportunity to coach and be coached in English without going out to the market and selling myself, I use this system on the ICF website as the wonderful opportunity. You pay something like $50-something around, and then you get 6 sessions from a coach at your level of competency, and you getting coached by a coach at your level of competency. As I was PCC, I commonly looked for the rounds that give PCC coaches as clients and coaches. As you might be at a different level, you would be eligible to go from everywhere, from the very, very beginning coaches to the very, very high level where you are. But before I got my MCC, the last 2 peer reciprocal rounds, I was coaching and being coached by people who also go for the credential. So that gave us some interesting flavor. I got to know people who were also striving for their MCC at the same time as me. And when I got my MCC, I discovered that half of them were also getting their MCC. So right now, I have contact with several coaches at my level who went even further. So I do have several questions here. I am wondering. So let me finish with let me finish with the ICF reciprocal coaching and go further. So I normally always check upon, and twice a year I get this opportunity to coach and be coached by people from different other countries, and that gives me a huge new understanding, especially when I also later or earlier go for Ericsson training and teach in those countries as well, and get even deeper understanding from two sides and get connections. I've been coaching people from Mauritius, France, Italy, India, Lebanon, Oman, US, and once I made a mistake and signed myself into the UK, United Kingdom, peer reciprocal closed round, and discovered that both of my client and coach, both of them were from UK. That was a gift because I didn't need to work much. Both of those understood me perfectly well and were fluent in the language. As for right now, I'm finishing one peer reciprocal coaching round with MCC, and that gives huge impact. And that was extremely funny when with the PCCs I was coaching each other. Some of them just forgotten all the tools of their schools where they studied, and were using a lot of advice giving throughout their coaching. So I needed to be very bold and very direct into the giving feedback as a coachee. What kind of interaction do I expect from my coach? What works best for me? And even if the coach was very advice giving, it gave me a different developmental area. I learned how can I request from a coach some interaction and style I really want. Let me see. Yeah, so you want me to speak about direct communication. What exactly are the cultural differences? You can ask myself a little deeper so that I can answer to you this question. So let me go further. So that was about peer reciprocal coaching. So if you haven't started that, please do start it. That's my message to you. As you use peer reciprocal coaching and you pay just a little extra, you get 6 sessions from a coach who would normally maybe charge $200 a session, and you get them for free for exchange, and you can record them in the list of your coaching sessions when you summarize hours for your credential. At the same time, you will get opportunity to coach someone and record those sessions for your future mentoring and re-listening. So that's such a small amount of investment of time and money from you gives you, first of all your ICF membership fully paid back and much more extra. I think for me personally, that is of extreme useful. So we go further. Yes. Right. So asking one of the questions, answering one of the questions from the chat box from Katya, what is the difference in different positions? I would like to go further, blending together my ideas and our common new religion that I call PCC markers. So one first area where you will notice that you get a little bit less relaxed, more tense, and inflexible is your coach presence. And here I would quote on the screen PCC markers for coaching presence and notice which of them get a little shrinked. As I am ICF assessor with ICF at the PCC level, I hear many sessions. And I notice my own sessions as well when I coach in English. So these are the 8 markers, PCC markers, for the coaching presence competence. And as soon as you start coaching in English, you will notice that your coaching presence start to get shaken. And I use the metaphor of this Russian doll, not the Russian doll Matryoshka, but the Russian doll Nevalyashka. This, I don't remember how they call it in English, Jack something. This doll is a symbol of you growing further your coaching presence. As you start coaching in English, you start to notice that a lot of different internal limitations pop up when you start to get inside of your coaching presence. And for me, this is the first competence you need to grow to be able to get yourself into the shape to become flexible into coaching in English. Coaching presence helps the coach to exhibit curiosity with the intent to learn more and to verbalize it in such a way that the client gets it. To become very bold into noticing and exploring the energy shift, to become even more emphatic and responsive to what the client says and to also what the client, what stays outside of the session. And here with the coaching presence, the first thing we need to work into the session, we need to accept that for us as people whose English is not their first language and might be the same for our client, we need to accept that we need to use everything we can and forgive ourselves for the mistakes in language. Cut through your misunderstanding. Accept and give the client feedback that you might sometimes lose what they say. You know, I'm kind of lost in what you've said. Can we summarize that in plain words, in 3-4 words? Or maybe you misunderstand sometimes. Or maybe you actually don't get what he means. So you need to get yourself inside of your coaching presence, and out of that presence, be able to accept, yes, you're limited in English, not the way that you're in your own language, but you get much more. Your courage gets you out of the shell, and you give yourself to the world of English speakers. So this is the coaching presence, and these are the 8 markers that when I am assessing coaches, I'm listening to these 8 markers. I'm listening to how coach uses the words. Does the coach use the words of the client, or he rephrases what the client says, and that somehow might mislead the client? I'm noticing that as soon as the coach starts to coach in English, he becomes a little wordy. I will try to explain what do I mean. Well, when we coach in our own language and we are relaxed, we don't need so many words. When we start to coach in English, coach, to get himself relaxed, starts to repeat every single thing the client has said. And that might take a lot of space. As coaching presence of the coach gives the space of thinking to his client, using too many words to repeat everything that he said for me is a clear marker that coach might have lost his coaching presence and needs to come back into his usage of language, usage of coaching questions. And that is one very vivid picture, and that is something that we discussed during mentoring. And also, coach partners with the client. So that is number 7. Coach partners with the client. And also, it's number 3. Coach notices and explores. Energy shift in the client. Coach is observant, empathic, and responsive. One more area where we get different level of partnership with the client is related to other competences. Partnership is the mixture of your contracting tools and building trust and intimacy. The things that you might have presumed go without saying in your own language are not necessarily so as you get connected to people from different other cultures. How do we really do that in English? How do we build that in English? It's a good question for us and for us being mentored. So there are two competencies that we need to go further with while we go out and start out in the world and start to coach in English. One of them is creating the coaching agreement. As I've been mentored for my MCC, at the beginning of my mentoring, I was contacting my own school, Ericsson Coaching International, and I asked a couple of mentors from my own school to listen to my sessions and give me feedback. As we are based on the same school and people know me, I guess that you get, through the feedback, you get some extra positive effect, like sun is shining on the coach and the mentor is a bit too kind to the person and positive. So I got very nice feedback and I submitted my sessions to the ICF and ICF said, nope, two of them are not good enough. You need to go further. So when I was doing my second attempt, I contacted ICF directly and asked to give me a list of ICF actual assessors who do assess now. And out of that list, I collected, I contacted several, got some feedback, and contacted several, and then zoomed into two, with whom I continue to mentor. The ones who do assess with ICF and know the current requirements. So the creating the coaching agreement was a competency I needed to get absolute breakthrough in. What would I say? As you go to another language, you might presume that the contract is there. And in the beginning of my mentoring, I was submitting sessions with my Russian clients, with whom I just switched into English, and with whom I have experienced like 5, 6, 7 sessions before. And when I go further and start to coach them further in English, there is a lot in between us two that hasn't been said. As you remember, previously I said that Russian culture is a high context culture. So we say a little, and there is much that stays under the water. And my mentors were saying, you know, to be able to submit your ICF, you need to be able to actually verbalize everything that is between you in words. And that was a huge developmental area. So how do we both know, both client and the coach, get crystal clear on what is the coaching agreement for this session? So that you don't presume something, or you don't get something from the previous sessions and continue on. You need to verbalize that and say, as you have said in the former sessions, you noticed that that area was difficult for you and this area was easy for you. How would you want to proceed in the future? So this is the area that might be for you also an area where you need to grow further as soon as you start coaching in English and spend maybe 1/3 more time on coaching agreement than before. Alexandra.
Yeah, Anna, thank you so much. We have 15 minutes and a lot of questions.
All right. So then, what do we do then? Let me see. La, 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 la. Okay, then we go to the questions.
Okay. Should I help you with the questions and Q&A box?
All right. Yeah.
So the first question is, Anna, tell me please, Have you ever had a situation when you missed the point of your client or misunderstood the meaning of the phrase? Previous speaker told us that we shouldn't be afraid of that. But what about rapport, such misunderstandings? Don't they destroy a good rapport?
Yes. So exactly, we were there. We are in the right place, you know. We are in the right place as we go to the slide number, competence number 3, creating trust and intimacy. As you go into the English-speaking world with included English speakers and non-English speakers who will be your clients in English, you need to agree on how would you proceed with this. A couple of times I totally missed the point, especially surprisingly enough, not with the people who are native speakers in English, but the ones who use it, like my most difficult ones were a man from Italy and a man from India, as they do have a little bit of different vocabulary when they study. A couple of times I totally missed the point. So by definition, those sessions were not good enough to submit to mentors. But for me, as the coach, that were the sessions filled with deeper learning. As you get inside of your coach position, you need to accept, yes, I have lost the meaning, but the thing that I shouldn't lose is my coaching presence. And then the thing that will not be lost is the space for the client, trust and intimacy. You know, I don't follow what you are saying right now because maybe of my English language. This can become your flavor. This can become a spice in your conversation, something that you can flirt with. Go and put the expectations from your English a little bit lower than they are, and then you would be having the right to ask and re-ask your questions. So let us speak about this a little more. Can you rephrase what you've said for me to understand it even better? Can you use some other word? So yes, you get lost and you lose the report, but if you cover that up and you don't share that with the client, the whole session goes very low on competences and you miss out a lot what will be said later. The same goes with Skype, Zoom, and all the other messengers. When you notice that you miss communication because of low quality of internet connection and you do not accept that, then you will, and you don't say anything about that, you live with this, you will start to notice how your trust and intimacy quickly shrinks. And that is very sad. So that is my answer to your question.
Thank you so much. And the next question is, Anna, are foreigners willing to cooperate with a coach from Russia? And if you start working with a client from another country, how deep are you immersed into the cultural characteristics of the country?
Thank you, Alexandra, for helping me out with the question. And thank you, Svetlana. Foreigners are of different types. And they should have some, well, what's good in you as a coach from Russia or from whatever place is, Dmitry has hidden the question from me. Okay, so what's good in you as a coach from whatever country you are? Foreigners are different types. Some of them are English speakers, native English speakers. The others are the same as you, working on your language. My clients, my expat clients in Russia valued that I was a Russian speaker, working with Danish people, working with internationals for many years. So they noticed me being an expert on the typical issues that arise in between a foreigner and a Russian-based team. So here in the area of my expertise, they knew that I can ask them the questions where they completely miss up. As I am coaching people from other countries, we are so neutral around our nations, and Teddy from Bulgaria, who is present here, can say like, it doesn't interfere with us. Who you are as a coach and what are your capabilities is more important than what country you are based in. And Russia is a great country. and the Russian School of English is a great school. So, you know, when we are ourselves quite prejudiced towards the Russian-speaking coaches, this is not necessarily so with the others. They value and respect us a lot. And this is Ekaterina also asking me about how did I get my cross-cultural clients. From the places where I work, there are two places. One of them is working with Danish people and international people and German people and getting the clients just because they understand that expertise. And the second, through peer reciprocal coaching, you will discover where you can measure yourself up and what is your actually current level. And that's how you will get yourself more competency, and you will get yourself courage to be able to go further and find your own clients. I would say that tomorrow, Olga from Yekaterinburg, who is quite bold into getting out and getting herself clients, might be able to answer that question even better than me. As I try not to hold in my head the identity, oh, I'm a Russian-speaking coach trying to speak English, I hold my identity of a coach who can bring a lot of value to the clients. Then we get the response through this different self-knowledge, different coaching presence, and of course, different value for the clients. So I guess this question is done. Sandra. Sandra is asking us a question. When you said about people for whom English isn't native language, right? And I need to create more questions, comparing with Americans, first of all. They're being more direct, because UK people are a little more, you know, fluffy in words like we, Europeans. What with time does it come easier, or is it still bringing me to stress? As Sandra is a very good question, with time it gets easier. Since I started submitting my tapes for MCC certification, throughout 6 years, it got much easier. And even more so when I'm mentoring Norwegian, now I've got the second level of stress. I know people with whom we do speak in Norwegian language, and for them, that is a mother tongue. But we do have exercise of me listening to their audio tapes in English and giving them feedback in English, even though that both of us know that we can speak fluently another language. And it still is not as easy as my mother tongue. And you notice with the other speakers for whom English is not the first language, it's still a little bit less. What I notice that I miss out on and what I'm working on is humor, idioms that you can share with the clients. Idioms and something that reflects the same context. As we don't have the same jokes, we don't have the same movies we have seen when we were children, it limits our ability to laugh together. And the ability to laugh together gets a lot of feeling of relaxation, trust, and gets us into the direct communication and coaching presence. So finding the way, how can I relate to humor that is common for all humans on the planet, for me and you and everyone else, gives me the tool to bring in juice and energy in my coaching. And sometimes I miss out still, but this gets accepted as we agree in the beginning. So I think that the question from Sandra is answered. We go further on. Aiste. Alexandra, it actually helps when you read it aloud as well to the others.
Yes, sure. Dear Anna, what challenges you conduct when you have coaching in different countries with different clients? What is the most challenging?
Yes.
And what advice, suggestions you would have for those coaches who would like to have clients abroad, out of home country, but don't have there to start from?
Wow, what a wonderful question. Thank you very much for that. First of all, my own personal challenge can I be very bold and open here? I am a good-looking girl. I was a good-looking girl before. With years, it goes away, but still, I have a little bit of that identity. So I'm becoming quite shy when I coach men who are older than me and maybe who are managers and top managers. I don't have that much of that feeling when I coach Russians, as I can find quickly that young boy inside of him. But when I coach the English-speaking people from other countries, I notice that is an issue for me. When I'm a girl, a younger and kind of pretty girl, coaching a man, I notice that do they regard me as full professional, or do they regard me as a Barbie doll trying to speak? And I need to get and cut through this to the areas where it becomes interesting and, you know, very personal for that person. Then I completely erase that notion of me being younger and being of different sex, so that my capacity to coach them is limited. In the beginning, when I was younger, I was using a hat of a babushka, of a hat of a grandmother. Okay, I might be a young girl, but I might be also your grandmother. So how would I ask you a question if I would be your grandmother, dear client? I was trying to work with myself to get in tune. And this grandmother hat was helping me to get inside of me all of that gifts, my deeper listening, my empathy, my sincere love and questioning to that person. So that was that might be a very good gift for you. Find your own way of how you can overcome your major block. What is the only, if you cut everything else, what is the first and only block you have personally? And find a way, find a toolbox for you to offer the others the best gift of you. That is.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
We are lack of time. We have only 1 minute, so you can choose one question shortly.
Yeah, Julia asks a question about if it's possible to get peer reciprocal if you don't have ICF credential. The only first requirement to enter peer reciprocal system is to be paying ICF membership dues. If you're an ICF member, you can be accepted to peer reciprocal round, even if you don't hold any credential at all. There are different rounds for different levels. Let me see, there are several questions still, which, And what is my advice to actually enjoy coaching in a different language? Well, when we experience a different person, we get into the new world, and we get that person together with everything that surrounds that person, and we really get interested in the country of that person. And that is such a major gift. As soon as you know a foreign language, who said that proverb? You are so many times a human as so many languages you know. So when you coach a person from a totally different culture, you get yourself a huge gift of understanding that everything that you think is absolute is not necessarily so, and you get richer as a human. This is an unforgettable experience, I would say.
Anna, thank you so much. We still have a lot of questions, and if you don't mind, we will email it to you, collect all the questions, and give them to you to reply later. Okay?
Wow. Thank you very much.
Right. Thank you so much for being with us.
Right. I'm erasing my screen, and I'm erasing myself so that we can give Mark the floor.